Before the shame, before the clippers buzzed across her scalp, before her name became a viral hashtag, Eleanor Parker was just a mother, a widow, a woman sitting quietly in a navy blue dress, hoping to be seen by the only person who still mattered to her. The wedding venue was everything Eleanor could never afford. Marble floors, chandeliers the size of cars, waiters in white gloves. Melissa had married well. That much was clear. And as guests arrived in Teslas and cocktail dresses, Eleanor stepped out of the rideshare in shoes she'd had resoled 3 times, clutching a purse that still smelled faintly of mothballs and lavender sachets. But her heart was full, because today, her daughter was the bride. Eleanor.
You did it, baby. Your daddy would have cried seeing you walk down that aisle.
She sat in the second row she hadn't been allowed in the first, hands resting on her lap, trembling only slightly. Hair set, makeup done, with the help of a YouTube tutorial. She'd practiced her smile in the mirror that morning, just in case she cried. The ceremony was flawless. Melissa looked radiant, confident, sculpted, effortless. She no longer resembled the shy, freckled child Eleanor once walked to school. But that was okay. She had raised her to be strong, independent, better, or so she thought. The reception was louder. Champagne flowed. Laughter bounced off glass walls. And Eleanor sat at table 12, tucked near the service doors, beside an uncle no one remembered and a cousin who'd forgotten her name. She didn't mind, at least not at first. Not until she tried to find Melissa. She spotted her daughter near the open bar, surrounded by people in suits and silk. Melissa was laughing. Not just polite chuckles, but the carefree, full-body laugh Eleanor hadn't heard since high school. She walked over, slowly, hoping to say something simple, something small.
You were beautiful, sweetheart. Your father would be proud. I love you.
But before she could reach her, she heard it. Melissa.
I swear, if my mom cries during the toast, I'm going to lose it. She wore the same damn shoes from my prom. Called them vintage like that makes them less embarrassing.
Laughter.
I told her to sit in the back. She still marched up like it was her big moment. She thinks just because she suffered, she deserves a microphone. It's my day, not her comeback tour.
Louder laughter. Eleanor stopped, just behind the hydrangea centerpiece. Frozen. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She didn't mean that, a part of her whispered.
She's drunk. She's stressed. She's showing off.
But another voice, a quieter, older one, said something different.
She meant every word. She's ashamed of you.
Eleanor turned away before they could see her. She walked past the ballroom doors, through the side corridor, and stood in the bathroom stall with the broken latch. She stared at herself in the mirror. The pearls weren't real. The smile was forced. The eyes were no longer hers.
She thinks I'm small. She thinks I'm in the way.
Eleanor wiped away a smudge of mascara, fixed her lipstick, and went back to her table as if nothing had happened. But something had happened. Not loudly, not violently. Like fine porcelain chipped at the base. The kind of crack no one sees until the vase collapses under its own weight. That night, Eleanor went home alone. She placed the wedding favor on her kitchen table. She hung the dress on the back of her closet door. And she, Saturday, still silent, sore in ways no aspirin could fix.
She doesn't see me anymore. Not as her mother. Not as a person. Just an echo. A wrinkle in her perfect world.
But that wrinkle was about to become a ripple. And that ripple would become a wave. Eleanor didn't sleep that night. She didn't cry either. There was a silence inside her too vast for tears, like someone had turned off the volume to her soul. She sat in the dark, wrapped in the wedding shawl she'd spent 3 weeks knitting. The same one Melissa hadn't even glanced at. In front of her, on the kitchen table, was the thank you card Melissa had printed for guests. Mass-produced, generic. Thank you for sharing our special day. Not signed, not addressed. Just printed, like everything else in Melissa's life now. Sterile, curated, free of inconvenience. And Eleanor Parker had become an inconvenience. By morning, she still hadn't moved, but something in her had. A shift. Not anger. Not yet. Resolve. She stood up, stretched her aching legs, and walked slowly to the far end of the apartment. Richard's desk hadn't been touched in 5 years, not since the day they buried him. She opened the bottom drawer. Under old tax returns and a cracked leather notebook, she found it. A yellowed envelope, worn at the edges, sealed tight, and labeled in his handwriting.
For Ellie, if Melissa ever forgets who raised her, is wine to para so furted.
She unfolded it, the pen stroke still strong, like his voice firm, simple, never dramatic. Richard.
Ellie, if you're holding this, then something's broken. And our girl, our beautiful girl, has forgotten how she got here. She didn't grow on her own. You watered her, every late night fever, every skipped meal, every time you made sure she never knew what you were going without. So if she forgets, don't beg her to remember. Show her, remind her who you are. Don't disappear behind your grief. You survived me. You can survive this too.
Eleanor pressed the letter to her chest, and for the first time in months, her back straightened. She wasn't broken. She'd just been bending too long. That afternoon, Eleanor went to the library, not to read, to investigate. She'd never used public records before, never touched a legal filing in her life. But desperation makes fast learners. Within hours, she had found it all. Property transfers quietly filed under Melissa's name. A guardianship request claiming Eleanor was slipping mentally. A draft will she'd never signed, but Melissa had tried to file anyway. Eleanor.
She's erasing me while I'm still alive. The pieces were all there. Melissa wasn't just ashamed of her. She was removing her. Softly, legally, cleanly. As if Eleanor were a phase to be managed. An expired warranty.
Eleanor printed every file, labeled each document, cross-referenced it with the dates she remembered holding Melissa's hand. She didn't raise a liar, but she'd raised a woman who had learned how to bury her mother in paperwork. That night, Eleanor lit a candle. Not for prayer, for clarity. She laid out everything on the table. The folder, the documents, the letter from Richard. And beside it, she placed a small canvas bag. Inside it, the shawl Melissa ignored, her wedding shoes, and tucked into the bottom, a pair of heavy-duty scissors. She didn't know why she packed them. Not yet. Only that something needed to be cut. Something more than just the lies. They had spent months planning how to erase her. Now, Eleanor Parker was planning her return. The invitation came 2 weeks later, an intimate post-wedding brunch at the Bloom and Oak Country Club. Eleanor wasn't surprised. Melissa needed to maintain appearances, even when guilt was eating her alive. Presentation came first, and Eleanor, she would attend. Not as a guest, not as a victim, but as something Melissa had underestimated for far too long. A woman with nothing left to lose. The room sparkled. White linens, crystal pitchers of mimosa, perfectly curated laughter echoing off manicured walls. Melissa was standing at the center, radiant again, wearing a peach silk blouse and that practiced, camera-ready smile. She froze when she saw Eleanor walk in. The room noticed too. The woman in the thrifted blue dress, hair pinned back simply, carrying nothing but a small woven bag, and her presence. Eleanor walked straight to the front table. No detours, no apology. She placed her bag down, cleared her throat, and began. Eleanor.
Good morning, everyone. I won't take much of your time. I know you came for brunch, not revelations. But sometimes, the truth deserves a toast too.
Eleanor opened her bag. Out came a folder. Inside copies of property deeds, false affidavits, and a guardianship petition Melissa had signed behind her back. She laid them out beside the fruit platter. Silence fell. Eleanor.
These documents were filed by my daughter, not out of love, but out of calculation. Because in a world obsessed with image, I became a liability.
Melissa.
Mom, what are you doing?
Eleanor.
Speaking, After a lifetime of silence, you told your friends I was dramatic, that I wore the same shoes to your wedding as I did to prom, that I was a burden you were graciously enduring. But let me tell you what those shoes walk through: night shifts, emergency rooms, and 1,000 steps behind you, so you could march forward.
People were no longer sipping mimosas. They were frozen forks midair, glasses untouched. Eleanor reached into the bottom of the bag and pulled out the scissors. The gasps came immediately. Soft, sharp, like a gasp doesn't belong in a country club. Eleanor.
You want to curate a version of me? One that's tidy, quiet, out of the frame? Fine, then let me remove the last thing you're ashamed of.
She grabbed a thick lock of her silver hair, held it up, cut, one snip, then another. The strands floated like snowflakes onto the linen tablecloth. People began whispering. Melissa's husband stood up, unsure whether to intervene, but Eleanor kept going, deliberate, powerful, until she reached into her bag again. The room froze. One by one, the tables turned, eyes fixed on the woman in blue, who now stood boldly with the clippers humming in her hand. She raised them to her scalp. Eleanor.
You don't get to rewrite me, Melissa. You don't get to file me away under inconvenient. I am your mother, and this hair you're so embarrassed by, it's the same hair you clung to during your nightmares. The same hair you stroked when your father died.
Melissa gasped. Some guests turned away. Others watched, unable to stop, because what they were witnessing wasn't a breakdown. It was a reckoning, strand by strand. The past fell away, until Eleanor stood bare, bald, blazing. And then she turned to her daughter.
Eleanor, you cannot bury a woman who refuses to shrink, and you cannot replace a mother, not while her voice still echoes through your guilt.
She unplugged the clippers, placed them on the table, picked up her scarf, and walked out. No one clapped. No one dared speak. The only sound left was Melissa's sobbing. The internet did what it always does. By noon the next day, Eleanor's head shaving had gone viral. Clips were reposted with hashtags like Number, the mother who fought back, Number bald and brave, Number, family is not aesthetic. Some mocked her, some praised her, but none could deny her power. Because that day, at the Bloom and Oak Country Club, a woman stripped away every polite layer of shame and exposed the brutal, beautiful truth beneath. But the story doesn't end in a scandal. It ends in a knock. Eleanor opened the door slowly. She hadn't expected company. Not after everything. She stood in a cozy house, wearing a knit cap over her bare scalp, with tea already steeping on the stove. And there on the porch was Melissa. No makeup, no heels. Just a hoodie and swollen eyes. Melissa.
I didn't come to defend myself. I just didn't know where else to go.
Eleanor didn't speak. She just stepped aside. Melissa entered like someone walking into a church. Not sure if she belonged. Not sure if she'd be struck down for what she'd done. They sat in the kitchen. No food. No words yet. Just steam from 2 mugs and the sound of old pain breathing in the walls. Melissa. I was ashamed of where I came from. Not because of you, but because of how small I let them make you seem. Your hands. They told the truth. They were cracked, calloused, real. Mine were just polished lies. Eleanor.
Why did you sign the guardianship papers?
Melissa.
Because my in-laws kept saying you were a liability, that your finances would reflect poorly on us, that maybe you'd start asking for help someday, and it would ruin our stability. I started to believe them. I thought if I got ahead of it, if I filed the paperwork before things got complicated, I could keep control.
Eleanor.
So you erased me to protect your brand.
Melissa.
No, I erased you because I was terrified I'd become you. Struggling, overlooked, swallowed by someone else's life until I didn't recognize myself.
And there it was, the heart of the betrayal. Not just pride, not just shame, but fear of inheritance, of invisibility, of loving someone who reminded you too much of your own fragile future. Eleanor. Her scalp was still raw, but her eyes had never been sharper. Eleanor.
You think I didn't fear those same things? Every time your father worked late, I wondered if I'd vanish next. Every time I skipped a meal for your tuition, I wondered if you'd see the sacrifice, or just the scarcity. I was never trying to be your burden.
Melissa.
I was trying to be your roots.
Melissa.
And I cut them off.
They sat in silence for a while. Grief hummed between them, not just for what was said, but for what had never been said for decades.
Melissa, can I help you trim it properly? The hair?
Eleanor smiled, not because she forgave everything, but because forgiveness had finally become possible. She reached into the drawer and handed her daughter a small brush and clippers. And so, the daughter, who once tried to erase her mother, now sat beside her, gently smoothing the very scalp she had shamed. Melissa stayed that night. They watched old VHS tapes. Melissa laughed, really laughed at the tiny pigtails she once begged her mom to cut off. Eleanor watched her daughter cry when they reached the tape where Richard held her hand for the last time. Eleanor.
He would have forgiven you too, but not before making you fix the damn fence.
They both laughed through the ache. The healing didn't happen all at once. It never does. But something changed in that little kitchen. With 2 mugs of tea, a buzzing clipper, and the kind of silence that means everything is finally being said. Not everyone gets a second chance, but Eleanor did, and Melissa took it, one strand at a time.